Weeds are our common enemy, plaguing the homeowner, ruining golf courses and our tempers, cursing us with hay fever, piling up work by millions of man-hours for railroads and highway maintenance departments. But worst of all is their never-ending warfare against the American farmer. It is officially estimated that farm losses caused by weeds are approximately $3 billion annually, second only to the loss from soil erosion. Though the enemy is powerful, the fight is no longer one-sided. For here at the Dow Chemical Company in Midland, Michigan, revolutionary chemical killers are being produced to help rid us of these costly pests. For years, Dow research technicians, leaders in agricultural chemical developments, have experimented with organic herbicides to control weeds or kill them outright, to kill them inexpensively without harm to the crops they infest or to the soil. Thousands of tests in field and laboratory have resulted in the development of 4 major weed killers: Dow Selective Weed Killer, Dow Contact Weed Killer, 2,4-Dow Weed Killers, and Esteron 44. Dow Selective Weed Killer has proved highly effective for the chemical weeding of flax, peas, and grain. The water-soluble spray destroys weeds without causing permanent damage to the crops. Where mechanical mowing is difficult and all vegetation must be kept in check, Dow Contact Weed Killer is useful, such as for fence rows, orchards, roadsides, vacant lots. Dow Contact Weed Killer kills all top growth to the ground. It does not kill roots nor sterilize the soil, and so provides vegetation control without inviting erosion. It is best to kill non-grasses once and for all with 2,4-Dow and then use Dow Contact to keep the grasses under control. One of the newest and most versatile weapons in Dow's arsenal of chemical warfare is 2,4-Dow Weed Killer, proved in action against hundreds of weeds in a wide variety of crops. 2,4-D kills the entire weed, roots and all. Its victims include most broad-leaved annual weeds as well as perennials. Even perennials with deep root systems may be eradicated by repeated applications. Most grasses are not harmed when it's properly applied, nor is the soil poisoned. This time-lapse photography shows in a few moments the gradual killing of a common weed over a 15-day period after spraying with 2,4-D Weed Killer. 2,4-D is a growth regulator type of weed killer. The action is physiological, appearing to upset the plant's growth processes, causing modification and breakdown of its parts, and causing gradual but certain death. Dow set out to demonstrate the effectiveness of its chemical killers on a nationwide scale, on many kinds of weeds, under varying climatic conditions. The rich Red River Valley region of North Dakota afforded an ideal proving ground. In this area, farms cover thousands of acres, and weed control is a tremendous job. In the past, this meant fallowing the land or reduced yield because of weed competition. But today, modern chemical methods provide the answer. A plane dusts a field of young wheat with 2,4-D quickly and inexpensively. Less spectacular, but equally efficient, is the down-to-earth method. The 2,4-Dow dust, ready mixed and free-flowing, is poured into the hopper. The canvas floating behind the boom duster helps confine the powder to give better coverage and better weed kill. Early morning dusting when the air is calm gives good results. 2,4-D is also provided for liquid spraying. Spray pressure can be low, just enough to give uniform coverage. This work can be done satisfactorily without the help of the dog. The plot at the left is shown 10 days after treatment. That at the right was untreated. Treatment stopped the growth of the weeds. The breakdown of weeds is gradual. In 2 to 4 weeks, the destruction of many weeds is complete. Left to itself, mustard can choke the life out of a growing wheat crop. These pictures, taken a month after treatment, give dramatic proof of 2,4-D's ability to control this weed. Note the sharp dividing lines between treated and untreated test areas. The wheat plant at right is from a treated area, the smaller one at left from an untreated one. Annual wild buckwheat, shown here, weighs down grain by its twining growth. It often causes considerable loss in yield and makes harvesting difficult. Here is an unsprayed plant. Treatment with a special 2,4-D dust results in stunted plants like these. Stunting of weed growth is often as effective as outright killing. This is sow thistle growing in wheat, a young plant and one about ready to bloom. In this plant, the growing point is killed after treatment with 2,4-D. This field of healthy wheat shows what can be accomplished through the proper application of 2,4-Dow weed killer. Dow Selective Weed Killer has proven very effective for selective spraying of pea fields. Spraying should be done on bright, warm days when the foliage is dry. It's best to avoid spraying when excessively hot or immediately after a prolonged rainy or cloudy period. The peas at the left of the scene have been treated and are almost free of weeds. Weeds are flourishing in the adjoining strip. This flax field had been summer fallowed, but it didn't prevent a heavy growth of mustard from ruining the crop. Dow Selective is also used to selectively weed flax. Dow Selective should be applied to flax and other crops as a coarse, low-pressure spray using fan-type weed nozzles. After treatment with Dow Selective, the flax is virtually free of weeds. The lower leaves of flax may be burned slightly after treatment, but the crop is not permanently or seriously damaged. In California, killing weeds in the water-covered rice paddies had always been the toughest production problem, and the arrowhead lily, one of the most troublesome weed pests. Again, aviation and agricultural chemistry supply the answer. The plane is loaded with 2,4-Dow solution. In the past, there was no practical way of fighting weeds after the rice had been seeded. The long growing period required by rice enabled weeds to mature and seed before harvesting time. But 12 days after spraying with 2,4-D, the effect on the weeds is easy to see. Area at the right has not been treated. Compare this healthy unsprayed water plantain with this beat-up specimen after a bout with 2,4-D. There are other weeds that like to live with rice, such as kelp, tule, and curly-dock. And 2,4-D takes care of them, again without injury to the rice. Here's a sample of how tule feels sometime after a thorough spraying. And here's sprayed kelp. Tests were also made in California sorghum fields. This milo was infested with pigweed, but the area on the right has been treated and the weeds are under control. Compare the lamb's quarters on the right from this treated milo field with a healthy unsprayed specimen on the left. Free of weeds 30 days after spraying with 2,4-Dow weed killer. In Texas, where everything is on a grand scale, even the weed problem is prodigious. Ranchers and farmers fight a never-ending battle against the plant pests crowding in on their rangelands and cultivated acres. They fight against mesquite, which spreads over millions of acres, against the impenetrable encroachments of wild rose, and the creeping menace of bindweed. Promise of help through chemistry aroused much interest in the Dow experiments conducted in this region. 2,4-D was used in the experiments on mesquite. Once again, 2,4-D proved to be the answer. Compare the untreated mesquite on the right with the treated plants to the left. The healthy plant here was protected from the spray. Esteron 44 does the best job on woody plants. A few new suckers may develop after the first treatment, and they should be sprayed again. Wild rose is beautiful to the eye, but Texans regard it as a major pest. One method of control is to rip it up with chains, but the roots remain in the ground to send up a new growth the following year. Chemical spraying points the way toward a more permanent control of this hardy, fast-spreading nuisance. 2,4-D kills roots and all. Several weeks after spraying, the dead, dried-out plants are ready for burning. And, fortunately, a 2,4-D sprayed range is not injurious to livestock grazing in treated areas. The tops of wild morning glory, or bindweed, are highly sensitive to 2,4-D, and a large part of its extensive root system is killed with the first application. Here's a healthy, untreated bindweed. And here is its next-door neighbor after treatment. The tops are killed. The deep roots may later send up shoots, which should be treated again. Bitterweed, which has taken over vast acreages of once good range land, is a menace to the livestock industry. 2,4-D proved its effectiveness in combating this noxious weed, which has caused untold losses by poisoning sheep. These test plots show the marked contrast between sprayed and unsprayed bitterweed. Rice is also a very important crop in Texas, and one of the serious weed pests in rice is indigo. Part of a test field was sprayed with 2,4-D, and the rest of it left untreated. This shows the contrast between the untreated and the treated areas. The indigo weed in this plot is dead. The sprayed weed at the right is brown and beginning to rot. While these tests were conducted after flooding, other experiments showed that 2,4-D can best be applied shortly before flooding, when weeds are still small. In Louisiana, there are approximately 300,000 acres of sugar cane in cultivation, producing an average of 4,000 pounds of sugar per acre. Keeping sugar cane clear of weeds is vital to a profitable yield. One pernicious enemy of cane is the alligator weed. Notice the tall cane at the right, which has been treated with 2,4-D. Cane at the left is smaller, showing the result of weed competition. Here, the cane at the right was sprayed with 2,4-D. The row at the left was not sprayed, and the weeds are flourishing. Weeds sprayed with 2,4-D don't often play return engagements. This field, for example, which was sprayed a year ago, is still relatively free of alligator weed. Tests have shown that spraying with 2,4-D results in a greater yield than 3 good hoeings during the growing season. One of the most serious weed problems in Louisiana and other states in the South is the control of water hyacinth, which has spread over thousands of miles of inland waterways, hampering navigation, destroying fish, and ruining farm and recreation areas. This aquatic pest, the water hyacinth, spreads with almost incredible speed. Within 15 years after a few of the beautiful plants had been introduced into this country from Venezuela, they had multiplied so alarmingly as to call for a government survey on methods of control. They propagate from seeds as well as from shoots, and in warm weather will double in area within 30 days. Thick, tangled mats of interlaced plants float on the water, blocking navigation and clogging drainage canals. An acre of these mats contains something like 600,000 plants and weighs more than 100 tons. It is estimated that the annual damage done by water hyacinth in Louisiana alone is more than $1 million. Several millions have been spent to date in mechanically controlling this weed pest. Crusher and shredder type dredges are used to destroy the plant in navigable streams, but the destruction is only temporary. The plants grow back, and the cost of repeated mechanical treatment is high. Recently, the Louisiana State Department of Wildlife and Fisheries began experimenting with 2,4-D, and the results offer new hope in the battle for control. The plants in these treated areas are dying and will eventually sink to the bottom. Certain large areas of pest-ridden waterways can be treated from airplanes or power boats at a relatively low cost. Tests are continuing in all parts of the country, each one extending the list of victims for Dow's chemical weed killers. Power companies, for example, are experimenting with 2,4-D in eradicating many species of brush along power lines. Here, without 2,4-D, weeds and young brush flourish uncontrolled. Sprouting woody plants soon grow to tree size and then must be cut down before they damage the overhead wires. This heavy brush is the result of only 1 year's growth. It makes the line inspector's frequent trips more difficult. Notice the difference in this treated area. After treatment with Dow's Esteron 44, much of the brush is eliminated. Traveling throughout the plant structure and roots, this chemical weed killer leaves only shriveled leaves and pulpy, rotted roots. A single application of Esteron 44 to young suckers goes a long way toward their eradication. Here is poison ivy, a noxious woody plant that spreads rapidly. After a treatment with Esteron 44, poison ivy looks like this. Notice that the grass has not been damaged. Many woody species succumb to treatment. Here is sumac, sycamore, locust, wild cherry, sassafras. None of these look very healthy. If the brush has reached considerable height, it is best to first cut the plants down, but it need be done only once, not every year or two, as has been necessary in the past. Spraying the stumps is a promising method of application to kill the root system. If shoots appear later, they should be sprayed during their early growth period for complete eradication of the woody plants. Weeds have long been a problem on our nation's fine golf courses. After 2 years' usage, greenskeepers report excellent results with 2,4-Dow weed killer in clearing weeds from golf links and thereby improving the turf on fairways. Dandelions, one of the biggest nuisances to golfers and greenskeepers alike, are killed roots and all without harm to the turf. Dandelion, buckhorn, and plantain cannot resist 2,4-D. 10 days after treatment, most plants will be past any hope of recovery. This fair golfer is playing on a course that has not been treated. When her ball rolls into a clover growth, it's very hard to see. Her temper can be ruffled, and her game is delayed while the ball hides in the clover blossoms. This young lady is more fortunate. Just before blossom time, the greenskeeper sprayed with 2,4-D. Although the clover was not eradicated, blossoming was stopped, and her ball shows up clearly against the green turf. The testing and experimentation goes on. Here, a growth of bull thistle is sprayed with 2,4-D, while a portion is protected against the spray by a tarpaulin. Spot treatment of bull thistle or other weeds can be done without injury to clover. The difference, 2 months later, the sprayed plants are dead. Those which were protected are, of course, thriving nicely. The list of weeds which can be killed or controlled by Dow weed killers is virtually endless. Barnyard weeds such as burdock, dog fennel and lamb's quarters, ragweed, wolfweed, sow thistle, Canada thistle, elderberry, which is particularly susceptible to 2,4-D, as can be seen in this test area. Whatever your weed problem, whether as a homeowner with a lawn and garden to maintain, a greenskeeper at a golf club, a farmer with hundreds of acres under cultivation, an operator of a railroad, a sugar cane planter, or the operator of a public utility, Dow agricultural chemists have the answer.